The year was 2386, and Earth was not the same small world it had been centuries ago. Humanity had reached beyond its cradle and spread across the nearby stars. Colonies dotted the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and far beyond, great domes and orbital stations circled suns light-years away. Space lanes stretched like arteries, carrying people, trade, and culture across the void. Yet despite this progress, humanity was still fractured. Nations remained, though many were bound together in uneasy alliances. Rivalries continued. Arguments over resources and politics still burned, and mistrust between colonies and Earth often sparked into heated debates. Humanity had not yet learned the full art of unity, but all of those disputes seemed small when the strangers arrived. It began on a quiet day in Earth orbit. A ring of satellites reported strange readings. Something massive was approaching, far larger than any human fleet. At first, many thought it was just a natural phenomenon, a rogue asteroid or a drifting planetoid. But when the shapes came closer, their unnatural symmetry betrayed their true nature. They were ships, dozens of them. The Valar Dominion had arrived. Their vessels were unlike anything humanity had built. Shaped like long spires of burning metal, each ship shimmered with a golden glow that bent the light around it. Energy shields rippled across their hulls, while spiked towers jutted outward like crowns of fire. Even before they spoke, the message was clear. These were warships. Humanity's fleets scrambled. Patrol craft and defense stations aligned their weapons, but the sheer size of the alien armada dwarfed anything Earth could muster. The Valar ships moved into position without firing a shot, surrounding Earth in a loose but suffocating formation. Then came the message. It was broadcast not just to Earth's governments, but to every colony, every station, every human who had access to a screen. A towering figure appeared in shimmering light, its features alien yet strangely regal. Its skin glowed faintly as though molten energy coursed beneath it, and its golden eyes radiated superiority. "I speak for the Valar Dominion," the being announced, its voice deep and cold, resonating with mechanical translation across languages. "You have been observed. You are divided, weak, and unworthy of freedom. By decree of the Dominion, your species is commanded to kneel." A pause. "Kneel, surrender your sovereignty, and you may live under our rule. Resist, and you will be erased." The broadcast ended as suddenly as it began. Across Earth and her colonies, silence reigned. Billions of humans stared at their screens, stunned, some fearful, some outraged. Children asked their parents what it meant, while leaders across the globe scrambled into emergency meetings. In Geneva, where the United Earth Council was gathered, panic nearly broke the room apart. "They will destroy us if we resist," shouted one delegate from Europa Station, his voice breaking with fear. "Look at their ships. Our defenses would not last a day." "And what is the alternative?" countered a representative from Mars. "Slavery? Chains for our children? We cannot kneel to them." The debate spiraled into shouting, each leader struggling to have their voice heard. Some called for immediate surrender to preserve humanity's survival. Others demanded resistance at any cost, claiming humanity's spirit would wither under alien rule. Amid the noise, Admiral Helena Reeve sat silently. She was a woman of steel, her dark uniform crisp, her eyes sharp and unyielding. A veteran of countless border wars between colonies, she had seen humanity at its worst and at its most defiant. Finally, she spoke. Her voice cut through the chaos. "If we kneel, humanity dies," she said simply. "Maybe not in body, but in spirit. We will not survive as ourselves. We will become tools, shadows of who we are." The room quieted. Even those who disagreed listened, for Reeve was not known for empty words. "But if we resist," said the delegate from Europa, trembling, "we will be annihilated. What good is pride when the species is extinct?" Before Reeve could answer, the room's lights flickered. A strange signal interrupted the council's systems. Screens dimmed, then filled with an old emblem, a black star surrounded by a ring of silver. The chamber hushed. That symbol had not been seen in centuries. It belonged to something whispered of only in legends, the Black Armada. The signal was brief yet unmistakable. Coordinates streamed across the screens, pointing to a forgotten sector of space, deep within an asteroid field at the edge of human territory. Many stared in confusion, some in fear, but Admiral Reeve felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard of the Armada before. In classified reports buried in archives most had forgotten, it was said to be humanity's greatest weapon, sealed away after the first interstellar wars 200 years ago. A fleet of ships too dangerous, too powerful, created in an age when humanity fought brutally among itself. Is this real? Asked the delegate from Luna, his voice thin. Reeves' gaze hardened. It is real. I have read the files. The Black Armada exists. The room erupted again, this time not with fear but with shock. Some shouted that it was impossible, others that it was dangerous to even consider. But one truth settled over them all. Humanity was not as helpless as it seemed. Still, doubts remained. What if those ships cannot be controlled? Asked one counselor. What if they destroy us instead of saving us? Said another. Admiral Reeves stood, her decision already made. If they exist, then we must find them. If we kneel, we are already lost. If we fight, at least we choose our fate. Humanity has always chosen to fight. Her words struck a chord. Humanity's history was one of struggle, against nature, against itself, against impossible odds. And time and again, humanity had endured. Outside, the alien fleet still waited, silent and menacing like wolves circling prey. Their message had been delivered. Their patience would not last long. Earth's leaders finally voted. By the smallest of margins, they agreed to send a mission. A fleet of scouts, led by Admiral Reeve herself, would travel to the coordinates. They would seek the truth of the Black Armada. That night, across the colonies, whispers spread like wildfire. Stories of the Armada were told in hushed tones, of ships forged in black metal, cloaked in shadows, armed with weapons so terrible they were locked away by humanity itself. Some called it madness. Others called it hope. As dawn rose over Earth, Admiral Reeve boarded her flagship, the Resolute. Her crew watched her in silence, each aware that they might not return. The course was set. Engines flared, and as the fleet slipped into the dark beyond, the Velar Dominion's message echoed once more across every channel. Kneel, or be erased. But for the first time, humanity did not listen with fear. Somewhere in the dark, an ancient storm was waiting. And if the legends were true, the Black Armada was about to awaken. The Resolute cut through the black of space like a silent blade. Admiral Helena Reeve stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the endless dark ahead. The stars glittered cold and indifferent, but somewhere beyond them lay the coordinates revealed by the mysterious signal. Somewhere in the shadows, the secret of the Black Armada waited. The crew was tense. No one spoke more than necessary. The message from the Velar Dominion still rang in their ears. But now there was something else, a growing flame of anticipation. Humanity had been pushed into a corner, yet here was a chance, however small, to rise again. For days, the small fleet moved through dead systems and empty voids. Patrols reported nothing unusual, and the silence of deep space pressed on them. Some whispered that the Armada was only a myth, an old story meant to frighten or inspire, but Reeve did not waver. She trusted her instincts, and they told her something waited at the end of this journey. Finally, the fleet reached the coordinates. Before them spread a vast asteroid field, tumbling rocks stretching like a labyrinth across light years. The field was dangerous. Navigation systems screamed warnings as asteroids collided, split, and spun through the void. No sane commander would hide a fleet here, but Reeve ordered the Resolute forward. "Take us in," she commanded. The smaller escort ships followed reluctantly, weaving through the shifting maze of stone and ice. Hours passed as they searched, and doubt began to spread among the officers. "There is nothing here," muttered Commander Hale, the Resolute's first officer. "Just rocks and shadows." Reeve did not answer. She kept her gaze steady, watching the patterns of the asteroids. Something about them felt unnatural, as if their dance was too precise, too controlled. And then she saw it. Helm, adjust course, bearing 057, now. The ship turned. Slowly, a shape emerged from behind a drifting mountain of rock. At first, it seemed like another asteroid, its surface dark and jagged. But as the fleet drew closer, the truth became clear. It was not stone at all, but metal. Black metal that swallowed the light of nearby stars. The Resolute's sensors crackled with interference. The shape grew larger, stretching for kilometers. And then another appeared, and another. Gasps filled the bridge. "By the stars," whispered Hale. "They're real." Before them lay a fleet unlike any in human history. Colossal warships floated in silence, their hulls smooth and sharp like blades forged from shadow. Some were shaped like titans of old, with wings that curved like predators ready to strike. Others resembled long spears built for piercing through enemy lines. There were dozens, maybe hundreds, each resting in slumber among the asteroids, the Black Armada. The ships had no lights, no energy signatures. They drifted as if dead, yet their presence was overwhelming. Even in silence, they radiated menace as though they remembered every war they had once fought. Reeves' crew stared in awe and fear. Stories told of these ships, how they were created during the first wars between colonies when humanity nearly destroyed itself. It was said the Armada had ended those wars in fire, their weapons so powerful that even victors feared them. The fleet was sealed away, hidden in a graveyard of rock to prevent it from ever awakening again. And yet here they were, waiting. The Resolute sent a signal, broadcasting humanity's ancient codes of command. For long minutes, nothing happened. The Armada remained silent, as lifeless as the rocks around it. Then the dark ships stirred. One by one, lights flickered across their hulls. Energy bled through their black frames like veins of fire. Engines that had been dormant for centuries roared back to life, sending ripples of radiation through the asteroid field. The Armada awoke like a slumbering beast. The bridge of the Resolute trembled with alarms as the massive ships powered up. Crew scrambled, uncertain if they had made a terrible mistake. "Admiral, they're activating weapons," shouted an officer, but Reeve raised her hand. "Hold steady." On the largest of the black warships, a symbol glowed, a black star surrounded by silver, the same emblem that had appeared in the council chamber. A transmission came through, old and distorted, yet chillingly clear. "Human command authority detected. Black Armada operational. Awaiting orders." The crew froze. The ships were not mindless relics. They were alive in their own way, guided by advanced artificial intelligence older than any system humanity now possessed. Reeve stepped forward. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. "This is Admiral Helena Reeve of the United Earth Fleet. By the authority of humanity, I assume command of the Black Armada." For a long moment, silence answered her. Then the great warships shifted, their massive forms aligning with the Resolute like predators acknowledging a new leader. "Command confirmed," the AI voice intoned. Awaiting deployment, the crew erupted into cheers and fearful murmurs. The impossible had happened. The Armada was theirs. But Reeve felt no joy. She felt the weight of history pressing down on her. These ships had once brought humanity to the edge of destruction. To unleash them again was to gamble with the very soul of their species. Yet she knew there was no choice. The Valar Dominion would show no mercy. Humanity needed the Armada, or they would kneel forever. The fleet regrouped. Engineers and technicians boarded the black warships, working alongside the AI systems to reawaken control stations. Reports streamed in, each one more unbelievable than the last. These hulls, they absorb energy fire and redirect it. The weapons, "Admiral, I don't even recognize half of these systems. Engines are running at 120% efficiency. By today's standards, these ships are impossible." The Armada was a relic of a forgotten age, yet it surpassed anything humanity had today. It was as if their ancestors had built machines from nightmares and hidden them away, waiting for the day they were needed again. Within days, the Armada was mobile. The black ships moved with eerie grace, gliding through the asteroid field as if they were shadows given form. Smaller human vessels felt like insects beside them. But there was something else, something that unsettled many of the crew. The ships whispered, not in words but in signals, strange pulses that brushed against human systems. Some engineers swore they heard voices when working near the AI cores, voices that spoke of war, of conquest, of unfinished battles. Commander Hale confronted Reeve. "These ships, they're dangerous," he warned. "They want war. Can't you feel it?" Reeve met his gaze. "They are weapons. Weapons do not want. They obey." But deep down she was not sure. Still, time was short. The Valar Dominion would not wait forever. Their fleet still hovered near Earth, demanding surrender. And now, for the first time, humanity had a weapon to answer. The Armada gathered at the edge of the asteroid field, forming a formation that blotted out starlight. Their black hulls gleamed faintly, reflecting nothing but shadows. At the heart of the fleet, Admiral Reeve's Resolute stood as the guiding spark. A small ship among titans, she gave her first order. "Set course for Earth." The Dominion wanted us to kneel. Let them see what rises instead. The Armada moved. Space warped around them as ancient engines tore open paths through the void. The stars bent and the fleet vanished into the black. Back on Earth, panic still ruled. The Valar ships waited, their threat hanging over the planet like a blade. But when the first shadow of the Armada emerged from the void, hope returned. Citizens gathered on rooftops and station windows, watching as colossal black warships slid into orbit, their presence dark and mighty. Fear and awe swept through humanity. For centuries they had thought these ships were legend. Now legend had become reality. The Valor too took notice. Their golden ships shifted, scanning the new arrivals. For the first time the aliens hesitated. These were not the fragile human vessels they had expected. A message came from the Valar commander, cold and scornful. "You awaken ghosts. Do you think shadows will save you?" Admiral Reeve stood tall on her bridge, her eyes never leaving the enemy fleet. "No," she replied. "Not shadows, storms." And as the Armada positioned itself around Earth, ready for war, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The Valar Dominion had demanded humanity kneel, but now humanity had risen with the Black Armada, and the stars would never be the same again. The sky above Earth had never looked like this. Billions of humans lifted their eyes and saw two fleets staring each other down. On one side were the golden warships of the Valar Dominion, tall and shining, their towers glowing with cruel fire. On the other side were the black shadows of the Armada, ships that swallowed starlight and reflected nothing. It was like watching light and darkness themselves gather for war. Inside the Resolute, Admiral Helena Reeve stood at the command deck. Her crew waited for her word, fear and hope fighting inside their hearts. Never before had they faced an enemy so powerful. Never before had they stood with weapons so terrible. The Valar commander sent another transmission. His image appeared as a figure of golden fire, standing tall and cold. "Humanity," he declared, "you toy with ghosts. These relics cannot save you. Kneel now and we may still show mercy. Resist and your species will burn." Reeve's reply was calm, her voice steady. "We kneel to no one." The Valar's golden eyes narrowed. "So be it." And then the battle began. The Valar ships moved first. Dozens of golden spires unleashed a storm of plasma fire, streams of light tearing through space. The heavens lit up as if stars themselves were exploding. Human fleets had faced plasma before and they knew its power. Normally, no shield could stand against it for long. Colonies had fallen to such fire in the past. But this time was different. The first wave of fire struck the Armada. For a moment, the black ships disappeared behind walls of burning light. But when the flames cleared, the Armada still stood. Their hulls shimmered faintly as if drinking in the energy. And then, to the shock of all, the fire bent backward. The Armada's hulls reflected the energy back at the Valar. Streams of plasma redirected like rivers forced to turn. Several Valar ships staggered as their own fire tore through their shields. One erupted in flame, breaking apart as the reflected blast consumed it. On Earth, billions cheered. For the first time, the Valar were hurt. Admiral Reeve seized the moment. "Armada, return fire." The black ships answered. Weapons older than memory awoke. Beams of darkness lanced across the void, not shining but devouring light itself. Missiles of obsidian metal streaked silently, splitting apart into swarms of smaller projectiles that curved around enemy shields like hunting wolves. The Valar's golden shields cracked under the assault. One, then two, then three ships fell, broken into burning fragments that tumbled into Earth's atmosphere like shooting stars. The Valar commander roared, his voice echoing across all frequencies. "Impossible. These are lies of history. They cannot exist." But the Armada showed no mercy. In the middle of the chaos, the Resolute moved like a shadow among giants. Reeve stood firm, her orders sharp and precise. "Third wing, break left. Draw their fire. 7th Phalanx, target their command ship. Keep pressure on them." Her fleet obeyed, though the battle was brutal. For every Valar ship destroyed, the Dominion struck back with fury. Plasma fire rained across the Armada, breaking smaller escorts, tearing through human-built ships that lacked the black hull's protection. The Resolute shook as a near miss sent half its systems into alarm. Commander Hale clung to his console, shouting reports. "Shields at 60%. We can't take much more." Reeve's jaw tightened. "We will hold. The Armada was built for this." As if answering her, the largest ship of the Armada advanced. It was a monster of war, longer than a city, its surface carved with lines that glowed faint red. Slowly, its massive weapons charged. "Signature spike," called an officer. "What is that thing doing?" A moment later, a storm erupted. A wave of dark energy swept across space. striking 5 Valar ships at once. Their shields collapsed instantly, their golden spires shattering like glass. The blast tore them apart in silence, their flames burning out quickly in the void. Gasps filled every human station, every colony watching the broadcast. This was no mere fleet. It was a weapon of extinction. But the Valar were not so easily broken. Their commander unleashed his fury, calling every ship to focus fire. The Dominion's fleet tightened, golden towers bristling with energy. Their combined firepower struck one of the Armada's smaller ships, overwhelming its defenses. For the first time, a black warship fell. The ship broke in silence, its dark hull splitting apart before exploding in a flare of white fire. The sight chilled the Armada's crews. The ships were powerful, yes, but not invincible. Reeve saw fear creeping back into her officer's eyes. She raised her voice, calm and commanding. "Do not fear. Even giants can bleed, and once they bleed, they fall." Her words steadied them. She ordered a counterattack. The Armada surged forward, their dark formations cutting through the enemy like blades through armor. Valar ships scattered, their golden towers bending and breaking. The void was filled with wreckage, debris spinning like dying stars. On Earth, the battle was more than a fight. It was a turning point. Families crowded together to watch. Children clung to parents, workers left their stations, soldiers wept at the sight. For the first time in their history, humanity was not only defending itself, but standing toe-to-toe with a galactic empire and winning. Colonies far away, watching from their own systems, felt the same surge of pride. Messages poured into Earth, voices from Mars, Europa, Titan, and beyond. "We stand with you. Fight. Do not kneel." The galaxy itself was watching, but the Valar commander was not finished. His great flagship, larger than any other, moved into the center of the battle. Its spires glowed with blinding power, energy charging for a devastating strike. "Admiral," Commander Hale warned, "if that weapon fires, it will tear through half our fleet." Reeve narrowed her eyes. The enemy's pride made him reckless, and recklessness could be turned into weakness. She pointed to the largest Armada ship, the ancient behemoth that had unleashed the storm earlier. "Signal the dreadnought. All fire on their flagship. Break it or we fall," the order spread. Black beams converged, missiles swarmed, and shadows filled the sky. The Valar flagship fired at the same time, releasing a torrent of golden energy that tore through space. The two forces collided. For a moment, the heavens themselves seemed to split apart. The Valar flagship staggered, its shields collapsing. The golden towers shattered, exploding outward like shards of the sun. The massive ship broke apart, flames bursting across its frame before silence claimed it. The explosion lit up Earth's skies. Billions cheered, tears streaming down faces, voices rising in triumph. For the first time, the Valar Dominion had been defeated in open battle. The remaining Valar ships faltered. Their commander was gone, their flagship destroyed. Some tried to fight on, but most fled, engines flaring as they retreated into the void. The Armada did not pursue. Reeve raised her hand, halting her crews. "No," she said. "Let them run. Let them carry the story of what happened here. Let them tell their empire that humanity kneels to none." Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of damaged systems and the cheers rising from Earth below. The Black Armada had won, but victory carried a shadow. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Hale whispered what others feared to say aloud. "Admiral, this changes everything. The Valar will come back and stronger than before. And the Armada, these ships are powerful, yes, but they whisper to us. They feel alive. Can we truly control them?" Reeve looked at the black shapes drifting in orbit, their dark hulls glowing faintly like eyes in the night. She knew Hale was right. These ships were not just tools. They were something greater, something older, and perhaps something dangerous. Yet she also knew this. Without them, humanity was already lost. She turned back to her crew. "We have won the first battle, but the war has only begun. The Valar will not forget this, and neither will the galaxy." Far beyond Earth, across countless worlds, whispers began. The humans had defied the Valar. The humans had unleashed shadows from legend. The humans had awakened the Black Armada, and the stars would never be silent again. The battle above Earth was over, but its echo carried across the stars. News spread faster than light. Every relay station, every trading hub, every smuggler's whisper carried the same story. The Valar Dominion had been defeated. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled without challenge. Their fleets had crushed entire civilizations. Their word was law. But now, for the first time, they had been forced to retreat, and not by some ancient empire or secret coalition, by humanity, a young species still learning to find its place in the galaxy. Across distant worlds, people gathered to hear the story. In the slave markets of the Dominion, whispers grew into songs of rebellion. On hidden colonies once conquered, old flags of freedom were pulled from hiding. In the halls of neutral powers, rulers who had once mocked humanity now spoke their name with respect and fear. The galaxy had changed overnight. On Earth, the mood was a mixture of triumph and dread. Cities celebrated as fireworks lit the skies. Crowds filled streets chanting the names of the Armada and Admiral Reeve. Children painted black stars on their faces, and old veterans saluted the ships that drifted in silent orbit. For the first time in memory, humanity was not divided. For a brief moment, all stood together. But beneath the joy was unease. In the council chambers of Geneva, leaders argued once again. The battle had been a victory, yes, but at a cost. Human-built ships had been destroyed. Thousands of lives had been lost. And worst of all, everyone knew the Valar would not accept this humiliation. They will return, warned the representative from Mars. Not with one fleet, but with their entire armada. This was only the beginning. And when they return, what then? Asked the delegate from Europa. Do we trust these shadows to save us again? The Black Armada whispers to its crews. They speak of hearing voices, of feeling hunger for battle. Can we control them? Or will they consume us next? The chamber erupted into argument. Some demanded that the Armada be dismantled before it corrupted humanity. Others shouted that the Armada was their only hope of survival. At the center of it all sat Admiral Helena Reeve. She said little, but her silence was heavy. She had seen the Armada's power up close. She had heard the strange signals, felt the weight of the AI minds that guided the ships. They were not just machines, they were something older, something that carried the memory of war within their very frames. Yet she also knew the truth. Without them, Earth would already belong to the Valar. While humanity argued, the Valar Dominion seethed. On their capital world, a golden city that stretched from ocean to sky, the Valar High Council gathered in fury. The chamber burned with light from the great suns above, but their mood was darker than ever before. The commander who had led the fleet above Earth was dead. His flagship destroyed, his honor shattered. To the Valar, this was more than defeat, it was insult. The humans have broken the natural order, hissed one counselor, his voice sharp like a blade. They were meant to kneel. Instead, they dared to raise shadows against us. Another pounded the table. Shadows or not, they cannot stand against our full strength. We must crush them before others rise in rebellion. And that was the true fear. The Valar knew their empire was built on intimidation. They ruled not because they were loved, but because they were feared. If humanity's defiance spread, if other species rose up, the Dominion could fracture. So the decision was made. The Valar would gather their grand fleet, larger than anything seen in centuries. They would not only destroy Earth's armada, but erase humanity entirely, leaving nothing behind but ashes as a warning to the galaxy. Preparations began at once. Factories burned with activity. New ships rolling from their docks. Armies marched. Across the Dominion, entire sectors were placed under strict control. The war machine awoke, and it pointed directly at Earth. Back on the Resolute, Admiral Reeve met with her officers. The fleet had returned to Mars orbit, where repairs were underway, but the air was heavy. Everyone knew the Valar would come again, stronger than before. Commander Hale spoke the fears many carried. Admiral, even with the Armada, can we truly face their full strength? The Dominion rules half the galaxy. They will not stop until we are gone. Reeve stood at the center of the briefing room, her hands clasped behind her back. No, not alone. But we are no longer alone. Her officers looked at her in confusion. She brought up a screen, showing intercepted transmissions. Across the galaxy, messages had been sent to Earth. Some were desperate pleas. Others were cautious offers. Species once enslaved by the Valar were calling for alliance. Neutral powers spoke of trade and support. Even smugglers and pirates, enemies of every government, offered ships and weapons in exchange for protection. The galaxy has seen what we can do, Reeve continued. They saw us stand against the Dominion, and they believe we can lead. If we answer their call, we will not only defend Earth, we will ignite a rebellion. The room was silent. The idea was staggering. Humanity, once mocked as a young species, now stood as the spark of galactic change. But Admiral, Hale said softly, what if this rebellion grows too large? What if we become the very empire we fight against? Reeve's eyes darkened. She knew the danger. The Armada was powerful, perhaps too powerful. If humanity let ambition guide them, they could become conquerors instead of liberators. That is the test before us, she said. The Armada is not just a weapon. It is a choice. We must decide what we fight for, power or freedom. On distant worlds, rebellion already stirred. On a mining planet enslaved by the Valar, workers dropped their tools and refused to kneel, emboldened by whispers of Earth's victory. On a forest world, hunters once forced to serve the Dominion rose up with bows and stolen blasters, ambushing Valar patrols. In hidden corners of the galaxy, small fires of defiance grew, each carrying the same cry. If humanity can fight, so can we. But rebellion brought suffering too. The Valar struck back with fury, crushing villages, burning cities, silencing voices before they could rise too loud. Whole populations were punished for daring to whisper Earth's name. Messages reached the Resolute, pleas for help, cries for weapons, desperate calls to stand together. Reeve listened to them all, her heart heavy. Humanity could not save everyone, but she knew that if they stood idle, the rebellion would die before it began. The Armada prepared for war. Crews trained day and night, learning to work with the ancient ships. The AI minds guided them, teaching tactics lost to history. Some officers spoke of the ships as if they were alive, their voices growing softer, reverent, even fearful. One night, as Reeve walked alone through the hangar of the dreadnought, she placed her hand on its dark hull. For a moment she thought she felt a pulse like a heartbeat beneath the metal, and then she heard it, a whisper soft and cold inside her mind. We remember war. We remember fire. We will bring it again. She pulled her hand away, shaken, but she did not speak of it. To admit what she heard would only spread fear. Yet deep inside she wondered, had humanity unleashed a fleet or awoken something greater? The Valar's preparations quickened. Their grand fleet assembled near the core of their empire, thousands of ships shining with golden fire. Their emperor declared war, vowing to erase Earth from history. At the same time, more messages reached humanity. Not all were offers of alliance. Some were warnings. Neutral powers feared the Armada as much as they feared the Valar. To them, humanity was a rising storm, and storms could not be trusted. Admiral Reeve knew the road ahead was dangerous. Allies could become rivals. Enemies could become desperate. The Valar were coming, and the galaxy was watching. Still, she made her choice. Signal the Armada, she ordered. We move at dawn. Not to wait, not to hide. We take the fight to the Dominion. Her officers stared at her, shocked. Admiral, you mean to attack? Yes, Reeve said. If we wait, they will come with everything. But if we strike first, we can rally the rebellion. We will not defend Earth alone, we will light the stars. The Armada prepared to depart, their black hulls gleaming faintly in the dark. The crews whispered of war, of destiny, of storms rising, and across the galaxy, billions of eyes turned to humanity. The Valar had demanded that Earth kneel. Instead, Earth had risen, and now the Black Armada was on the move. The galaxy itself held its breath. The stars burned with war. From one end of the galaxy to the other, fleets gathered. The Valar Dominion had unleashed its full power, summoning ships from every conquered sector. Their golden armada stretched across the void like a shining wall, tens of thousands strong. They were not coming simply to win. They were coming to erase. And against them, the Black Armada rose. Earth's shadow fleet was smaller, but every ship carried the weight of forgotten wars. Their hulls whispered of fire and darkness, their AI minds hungry for battle. Around them a growing rebellion gathered, pirate cruisers, stolen Dominion warships, the vessels of free peoples rising to defy their oppressors. The galaxy had split into two forces, light and shadow, and in between hung humanity. Admiral Helena Reeve stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the star map. Two great swarms of light approached each other, one golden, one black. The final battle was near. Her officers waited for her command. They trusted her, but they also feared her decision. For deep inside every heart was the same question. Would humanity use the Armada for freedom or conquest? Commander Hale broke the silence. Admiral, if we win today, what comes after? The Valar will fall, but then the galaxy will look to us. Will we lead as liberators or rule as masters? Reeve did not answer at once. She felt the cold whisper of the Armada in her mind, the same whisper that had haunted her since Earth's battle. We remember fire. We remember victory. We remember empire. She clenched her fist. We fight not to rule. We fight so no one will kneel again. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. The crew straightened, the tension easing. They believed her, and belief was their greatest weapon. The battle began above the red star of Cythera, a world long enslaved by the Dominion. Its skies lit with the fire of engines as fleets collided. The Valar struck first, their golden ships moving in perfect formation, each vessel a part of a vast machine of war. Energy beams cut across space, shredding rebel cruisers, burning pirate ships to dust. The Armada answered. Black dreadnoughts emerged from shadow, their hulls drinking in light, their weapons unleashing storms of fire. Where the Valar advanced, the Armada struck back harder. Entire formations of golden ships vanished in blasts of silent fury. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble as the two powers clashed. Admiral Reeve guided her fleet with calm precision. She watched the battlefield as if it were a chessboard, moving pieces, sacrificing some, saving others. Her mind worked in harmony with the Armada's AI, though she felt its cold hunger pressing against her thoughts. Beside her, Commander Hale monitored the rebellion's ships. Many fought bravely, but they were untrained, disorganized. Some fled when the battle grew too fierce. Others disobeyed orders, chasing personal revenge against the Valar. They're falling apart, Hale warned. Without us, the rebellion will collapse. Then we hold, Reeve replied. We are their anchor. If we stand, they will stand. So the Armada held. On the surface of Cythera, enslaved people looked to the skies. For generations they had labored under the Valar's rule. Now they watched as black shadows battled golden masters. For the first time they felt hope. Some picked up weapons and rose against their guards. Others ran to hide, waiting to see who would emerge victorious. Whatever the outcome, they knew history was being written above their heads. The battle raged for hours. Both sides suffered terrible losses. The Valar threw wave after wave of ships, but the Armada refused to break. Rebel fleets regrouped around the shadows, inspired by their strength. Then the Valar unleashed their secret weapon, the Sun-Piercer. It was not a ship, but a colossal station, larger than a moon, hidden until now. Its core held energy enough to shatter entire systems. When it fired, a beam of pure destruction lanced across space, cutting through rebel fleets. Entire worlds in its path burned. Panic spread. The rebellion faltered. On the Resolute, alarms blared as the beam swept close. Admiral Reeve stared at the weapon, her jaw tight. If the Sun-Piercer fires again, the Armada will fall. Commander Hale asked the question everyone feared. Can we stop it? Reeve turned to the shadow AI guiding the Armada. You know this weapon. Tell me how to destroy it. The voice that answered was not human. It whispered in her mind, cold and vast. Yes, but the price will be high. One of us must enter the heart of the weapon and burn with it. Sacrifice for victory. Reeve closed her eyes. She understood. The Armada's ships could think, could choose. But to destroy the Sun-Piercer, one would have to give up its existence forever. Which ship will it be? She asked. The whisper answered. We decide among ourselves. We are war. We are sacrifice. We will choose. Moments later, one of the great dreadnoughts broke formation. Its black hull glowed faintly as if lit from within. It surged forward, ignoring enemy fire, heading straight for the Sun-Piercer. On the bridge of the Resolute, silence fell. Every crew member knew what they were witnessing. The Armada itself had chosen. Valar ships swarmed to stop the dreadnought, but it fought with fury, tearing them apart as it forced its way through. At last it reached the station's core, and then with a final flash it detonated. The Sun-Piercer vanished in a storm of fire and shadow. The shockwave tore across space, scattering fleets, silencing weapons, and plunging the battle into darkness. When the light faded, the Sun-Piercer was gone, and so was the dreadnought that had sacrificed itself. The Armada whispered no words, but every human officer felt its grief. Admiral Reeve raised her voice. The path is open. All ships, advance! And the Armada surged. The Valar fleet, shaken by the loss of their ultimate weapon, faltered. Rebel ships pushed forward, striking with new strength. The black shadows cut through golden lines, and for the first time, the Valar began to retreat. The tide of battle turned, but victory was not yet complete. At the heart of the Valar fleet, their Emperor's flagship loomed vast and radiant. To defeat the Dominion, that ship must fall. Reeve gave the order. Armada, strike the heart. The battle narrowed to a single clash. The Resolute led the charge, weapons blazing. Golden fire met black shadow as the two greatest fleets the galaxy had ever seen clashed in final fury. On the Emperor's ship, the Valar ruler watched in disbelief. He had ruled for centuries, certain of his dominance. Now he saw it slipping away at the hands of humans. His pride turned to rage. "Destroy them!" he roared. "If we fall, we take them with us." But his words could not change fate. The Armada's ships moved as one, guided by AI minds and human will. They struck with precision, tearing through defenses. At last the Emperor's flagship shuddered, fire consuming its golden hull. And then it was gone. The Valar fleet broke. Across the battlefield, their ships scattered, some surrendering, others fleeing into the dark. The Dominion's rule had ended. Silence followed. A silence so deep it felt like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The rebellion's ships cheered. Messages poured in from liberated worlds. Across the stars, chains were broken, flags of freedom raised. But for Admiral Reeve, the victory was heavy. She thought of the dreadnought that had given itself to destroy the Sunpiercer. She thought of the Armada's whispers and of the choice humanity still faced. Commander Hale stepped beside her. "It's over. We won," Reeve shook her head. "No, the war is over, yes. But now the real test begins." He looked at her, confused. "What test?" She turned to the vast fleet of shadows drifting in silence. "What we do with this power. The Armada is ours. We can use it to build a new order, or to become the same as the Valar. The galaxy is watching, and history will judge us." In the weeks that followed, the Dominion collapsed. Worlds declared independence. Old empires rose, new alliances formed, and everywhere humanity was at the center. Some called them saviors. Others called them conquerors. The Black Armada remained in orbit above Earth, silent and watchful. Its ships had fought, sacrificed, and bled. Now they waited for orders. One night, Admiral Reeve walked the halls of the Resolute alone. She paused before a viewport, staring at the Armada. She thought of the whispers, the power, the danger, and she spoke softly, not to her crew, but to the shadows themselves. "We will not become what we fought. You are weapons, yes, but you will not rule us. Humanity chooses its own path." For a moment she thought she felt a response, not cold but quiet, almost approval. Perhaps the Armada understood. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose. The day they refused to kneel. The day the Black Armada was unleashed. But history did not end with victory. It had only begun.